Hello, my name is Robin Todd with Mindful Momentum, and I'm so grateful you're here, and I'm grateful to be here to be able to talk with you today about how mindfulness can be our anchor and our refuge. Let's get started. So what is mindfulness? Perhaps you've heard about it, perhaps you've started your journey of being mindful. But I always like to really start so that we can all get on the same page of really what it is, what we're striving to do when we're trying to live mindfully. And mindfulness is really a mental state achieved by focusing our awareness on the present moment, while calmly acknowledging and accepting your feelings, thoughts, and bodily sensations without judgment. So the first challenge is to be present in this moment. And that means that we're turning off the past of fretting and regretting, right? Our brain loves to go in the past. It loves to ruminate on things that we wish would have gone differently or conversations. And we can spend hours ruminating about the past. It also means that we're turning off all those thoughts that lead us to the future, those worries and those wishes. Our brain loves to live in the future. It's trying to predict what might happen so that it can keep us safe. And yet we spend a lot of mental energy and resources in the future. And most of those things are never going to happen, and yet we spend a lot of time on those. So when we're striving to be in the present moment, we're turning off the past, we're turning off the future, and we're just here right now. The second challenge with that is that we strive to experience whatever is in this moment without judgment. Now that has its own challenges because with what we experience in this moment, we bring a lot of baggage to it unnecessarily. We bring past memories and experiences and hopes and expectations, and if we can detach from some of that and just see things for what they are, we can experience them in a different way. Interestingly, the research shows that the average person in a 16-hour day of wakefulness is not present over 7.5 hours of the day. Almost half of our days are spent here and here. And what's even more interesting is that the research shows that we are happier if we're in the present moment. So not only do we have so many distractions going on, taking us away from here, but we're going to derive more happiness if we can be in the present moment. And that makes sense, right? Because all of this is exhausting. And so that's what we're striving to do if we have our aim of living mindfully. Now, we're talking about mindfulness because we have the research that supports it. Mindfulness certainly has been around for thousands of years. There have been people who've been reaping the benefits and have been talking about those benefits for a long time. But fortunately now, we have the science and the data that supports mindful practices. And some of the things that research has shown us in the last 15, 20 years is that it reduces stress. Anybody stressed out there? Most of us are, maybe even more now than ever with the things going on in our world. We know that stress is incredibly detrimental in chronic doses to not only our mental health but our physical health. In fact, the CDC suggests that between 70 and 90 doctor visits are due to stress-related illnesses. So it is really wreaking havoc in our lives. We know that mindful practice can help us with engagement, staying present with people. We've all been with people who are talking to us and become distracted even when they're looking at us, right? And so we really can reap the benefit of staying engaged with people. It helps with decision making. Again, when we can turn off these distractions in our mind, we have a space to think clearly, to have clarity on decisions. And no matter who we are or where we are, we all have to make important decisions all day long. We know that mindfulness can help us with emotional regulation without getting sucked into those things we're experiencing. We're going to talk more about that in just a little bit. It also shows that it fills us up with positive emotions, and the research behind positive emotions is incredibly powerful. We know that it helps us build concentration. I don't know about you, but it's getting more and more difficult to concentrate in today's world. Even pre-COVID-19, it was becoming difficult again because of all those distractions. We know that it helps us retrieve things from long-term memory a little quicker and easier. And I don't know about you, but at my age, I could really use that. It's getting harder to pull things from long-term memory. So I need all the help I can get. It helps us with focus, so staying present, being able to sustain that focus a little bit longer. It's been shown to help with anxiety. Anxiety is on the rise not only before all of the pandemic started, but even more so now. We know mindful practices can help us with that. People's job performance increases. And I always say that probably didn't take a scientific experiment to figure that out. Our stress is lower, we're having better engagement, we're making good decisions, we're emotionally regulated, we're concentrating, focusing, our anxiety is managed. Of course, our job performance is going to go up, and therefore our job satisfaction goes up. We feel better about what we're doing. We also have found that mindful practices are incredibly helpful in combating depression. We know that it also helps with creativity, so thinking outside the box. Organizations across the world have been tapping into that. Tech companies that have to be innovative, have been reaping that creativity through mindfulness. We also know that it builds resilience. And of course, now more than ever, we need to be resilient. We need to be able to navigate what we're experiencing and be able to cope, manage, and learn from and grow and become better and stronger from those challenges and adversity that we face. It increases our immune response. So again, in today's world where we're trying to stay as healthy as we can, mindful practices are going to help us with that. Our body is able to ward off viruses and diseases easier when we have a regular mindful practices in place in our life. It gives us a sense of well-being, that all is well. It helps lower blood pressure and has been helping with pain management since the late 70s. So all of this being said, it's increasing our effectiveness, our efficiency, our productivity, and our overall health. My hopes in sharing this list with you is just to provide some background in why we're talking about this, but also to show you perhaps some things that resonate with you. I don't know about you, but there's many things on this list that I want to reap the benefits from, which is why I'm committed to living what I teach. But hopefully there's something on that list that you decide to commit to in terms of seeing that mindfulness can help you. So as we look at mindfulness, I like to use this analogy of this ocean image. And in this picture of the ocean, it looks like the water is calm, the sun is shining, it looks calm and peaceful, and, well, sometimes our life is like that. If we look at our life as if we were this ocean, where everyone's healthy, everyone's happy, I'm kind of caught up, I'm feeling good, right? Sometimes life is like that. But the human experience isn't to have that all the time. Just as in the ocean, that's not the environment that is always happening in the ocean, because what happens in the ocean and in our life, we have these waves come in. And sometimes these waves are people in our family, people we work with, people in our community, people in our world. Sometimes those waves can be trauma that we've experienced, that people around us have experienced, even trauma in our country. We feel that in our communities. Sometimes those waves can be situations, interactions, email exchanges, conversations. Sometimes we don't need anything at all. All we need is a thought. A thought can pop in our head and it can take us off. It could be a thought from 2 years ago, and it'll pop into our head and we'll start ruminating on it, right? And so what happens is we get emotionally sucked in to the things that we're experiencing. And once we're emotionally sucked in, then we're allowing our emotions to dictate how we react, how we live. And unfortunately, without some mindfulness, we might not even realize that, let's just say we have somebody, cuts us off on the way to work. Well, if you're going to work, right? And you get all upset and you embody that angst and you're angry all the way to work. And then you get to work and situation where somebody's dropped the ball and now you have to work through lunch and you're already hungry. And so you start to embody that angst. And so one feeds into the other. And we're allowing all these things around us, oftentimes, that we can't control, dictate how we live, right? The beautiful thing is that we all have an anchor. And our anchor is mindfulness. Now, an anchor in the ocean sits at the bottom of the ocean, right? Miles down, no matter what is going on top. At the anchor, it's quiet, it's peaceful, and it's calm. And that's exactly what mindfulness provides us if we can remember to go there. We get to go there and we can calm, we can build resilience, we can cultivate hope, we can recharge. It's an opportunity to self-soothe. And when we're at our anchor, we get to do two things. One, we get to gain perspective. So if we can create some space between what's happening and how we're experiencing it, we get to choose. We get to see it not from an emotional lens, but from an objective lens, right? And we might decide, well, I'm just going to let that go. It's not worth it. Our energy, our mental and emotional energy are precious. And so we want to be mindful of what we're giving our mental energy to, right? So I have to give you an example because, well, I'm a work in progress just like you. I am striving to be mindful every day. And I'm grateful for my mindful practices because they do help me live the life that I want to live. But just because I do that doesn't mean I'm immune to anything. So I had a situation this morning and I thought, okay, well, I'm going to share it with you today. So 5 minutes before I was leaving the house to come to this recording, I realized I have a stain on my pants. Yeah. Now, of course, to some people, they might think, okay, no big deal. Well, what did I want to immediately do? Of course, get all upset and think, oh my gosh, I've got a stain. What am I going to wear now? I don't have anything else ready. Da-da-da-da-da-da. So I caught myself and decided that, well, okay, I have a stain. Luckily, I have this sweater that's kind of covering it. But in the scope of things, is it really worth it? So for me, with my mindful practices, it helps me let go of some of those things that I decide just aren't worth it. Because unfortunately, so much of what we experience, we just add to our own suffering. We bring it on ourselves. We spin on it. We get all upset about it. And maybe with a little mindfulness, we don't need to. So the second thing being at our anchor allows us to do is to be intentional. So there are some things, waves in our life, that we do need to be a part of, right? Trauma, people in our families, things that are happening that we just can't let float on by, right? That we do need to be a part, but we want to be there intentionally. Right? And what that means is that we want to recognize when we're a part of that, when we start to run dry, and when we start to, when we start getting on empty. Because I will tell you, as women, we love to live at the top. We are there for everyone. We feel like we have to be strong for everyone. And we can, but at some point it's going to start taking its toll. Because we cannot give to others what we really want to give them unless we give ourselves some self-care. Now, the beautiful thing is that it doesn't mean that we have to retreat to our anchor for a weekend or a week. It means that we can retreat to our anchor when we notice that we need some self-care for 30 seconds, 60 seconds, 2 minutes. And what that does is it fills us up so that we can then go back and help those that we want to help with our best self, not our exhausted, worn out, stressed out selves, okay? So I love this quote by Viktor Frankl. Some of you may be familiar with him. He survived concentration camp. He's an Austrian psychiatrist, and he says, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. That's powerful, especially coming from someone who experiencing something so horrific. And that's exactly what he's talking about. When we can create space, that's where we get to choose. And that's where we get to grow. And that's where we get to really develop the life that we want to live. So, you might be thinking, all right, how do I learn to live mindfully? Well, first, it starts with awareness and self-understanding. That is how we are going to create lasting change. Now, this is a little different than what we've been doing for a long time in our world. We've been doing change from the outside in for a long time. We can tell people what they need to do, when they need to do it. We do that to all kinds of people. We do that to our spouses and our children, perhaps people we work with. People do that to us. And while we can listen and create perhaps a temporary change, it's not going to be long-lasting because we need to create this from inside out. And it starts with awareness and self-understanding because you're the only one that knows what's going on in your head. You're the only one that knows when you've been ruminating on a conversation for the last 2 hours, or you've been worrying about something for 3 days that most likely won't happen, right? Or catching yourself, or starting to recognize your own patterns, your thought patterns, things that you do, triggers in your world, right? So this is all personal. Mindfulness is a personal journey for each of us. It's going to be different, which is why it's based in awareness and self-understanding. The second thing is that we need to find micro moments within our day to practice until it becomes part of our life. Now, the latest research shows that we only need to practice something for 10 minutes a day. And it doesn't have to be sustained 10 minutes. It could be 30 seconds here, 2 minutes here, 1 minute here. If by the end of the day, we can get to 10 minutes, within 3 months' time, we can actually create a new neural pathway in our brain that changes how we live and experience the world. So it's possible. It's doable. But we have to start noticing, building an awareness of these micro moments. Because you might think that you're so busy you don't have time. But I would challenge you to begin looking for micro moments because we all have them. We walk from one place to the next. We take bathroom breaks. We sit in the doctor's office, perhaps, waiting for an appointment. We sit in the car rider line picking up kids. We're in line at the grocery store. We have all these micro moments. Now, our initial instinct when we have a micro moment in today's world, perhaps you could guess, if I had it here, I would model it, but it's to pick up our phone, right? It's become this autopilot habit that we all have. Have a moment, pick up my phone, check in, scroll my social media, whatever, right? And I'm not here to tell you when to use your phone or when not to, but what if you found a micro moment and instead of immediately picking up your phone, you decided to take 60 seconds to just breathe, to calm, and to just kind of ground yourself in the present moment. And then pick your phone up and check in and do the things you need to do. So we have them, and I want to challenge you to begin finding them. The third thing is really to harness the neural pathways in our brain involved with the 3 pillars that I teach about. First is attention, which is really what's happening. We're going to talk a little bit about attention in this session, and I'm going to share one of 9 practices that I teach Our second is attitude, really looking at how am I reacting to the world around me? What are the attitudes I'm embodying that aren't serving me well? And then, of course, our third pillar is aim, which is what pathways do I want to grow? Where do I want to go? What's the person I want to develop into? We have to be mindful of that so we can align our goals with our aims. So before we really jump in, I want to just share with you quickly that there are no rules in being mindful. We just have guidelines. First is that it should lead to a sense of ease and be simple. Anything that we do in our mindful practice, we want to keep it simple, and that's hard because our humanness likes to make things super complicated, but it's not. Less is more. And it should give us a sense of ease. Now, it may feel a little uncomfortable because we're doing something new, but we don't want to force it. Okay. Sometimes I've been, oh my gosh, I just need to calm my thoughts. And so I try so hard to be mindful, and it doesn't work, right? Because we can't force it. If we feel resistance, we let it go. We try again later. 10 minutes later, 30 minutes later, maybe we go for a walk. We metabolize some stress so that we can calm our thoughts a little bit easier. Second is that it's going to take time for yourself to practice, to grow wise. This is not a quick fix. I know in our culture we love when things are quick fixes, but unfortunately this is not one of them. But I promise you, if you begin a journey, you're intentional about it, you're going to feel and reap the rewards. But it takes time to learn. So one of my favorite quotes is, we start slow and go slower. Dr. Maria Hunt, who created our curriculum, said that to me when I first started learning this curriculum. And I thought, what the heck does that mean? Who likes slow, let alone slower, right? And as I began to build my life of mindfulness, I realized the value in that. We start to notice things about ourselves. We really grow wise. We gain insight the slower we go. And third is that we need to be real, right? Nothing omitted, ignored, or taken away. We have to be honest about what we experience. Now, that can be challenging because when we're starting to notice things about ourselves, some of those things, well, aren't really what I want. They're not what I thought I was. And so we notice those without judgment, but we want to be our authentic self, because with awareness, now I get to choose. Right? But we really want to be honest. So let's talk briefly, before we start getting into attention, about 3 brain facts that I want to share with you. Now, brain facts really are important because they're going to help us build awareness and self-understanding. We need to understand how the brain was designed so we can begin to understand our own brain. We all have this hardwire in our brain, and so this is really going to start helping us tap into our own hardwire. So brain fact number 1, my brain and I like closure. To maximize resources, it likes to get things off its plate. Our brain likes to be done, okay? It's a natural problem solver more than a solution seeker. So it just wants to wrap things up because then it's done. It doesn't have to continue thinking about it. And our brain's an energy guzzler, which is a brain fact I didn't share with you, or I'm not sharing with you today. But that's why it's always trying to have closure. Now, this is challenging in our life, especially now, because there's so much uncertainty. And we want closure. We just want to know. We want to get there, we want to be done and move on. So we want to just catch ourselves doing this. We want to notice this on our brain. Our brain facts are neither here nor there. There's no judgment attached. But if we can catch ourselves, then we can understand ourselves. Perhaps we can start noticing, these are the things I can't have closure on because they're long term. But what do I have closure on my day? Or even just noticing I'm needing closure and I can't have it, and then I just give myself some grace and some compassion because I'm noticing that, right? It helps us build that awareness and self-understanding. Brain fact number 2, my brain and I assign an emotional tag to everything I experience. So positive, negative, or neutral, okay? the most vivid emotion is going to win my attention and shape my experience. So everything that's happening throughout our day, we're immediately giving it an emotional tag. Okay? We don't even realize it happens in a split second. Interestingly, the warning is that my brain naturally gravitates to the negative. So we are actually 3 to 5 times more sensitive to negative information. And it's a survival mechanism that we really appreciate. So in primitive time, I like to use this kind of example. I'm out foraging in the forest for food. Would it be more important to notice the poisonous snake or the beautiful flower in terms of survival? Of course, the poisonous snake, which is why we're primed to be always looking for threats, right? So the number one reason for the hardwire in our brain is to keep us alive, always, okay? So really important in primitive time, right? Well, not so much now, right? We're not out foraging. We don't encounter poisonous snakes typically. And yet, we are still very sensitive to negative information. We gravitate to negativity in other people, in ourselves, in our world, in our community, in our jobs. And so this is something we can start to catch and notice, realize that, appreciate the fact that my brain is being sensitive to that. But then with that awareness, I get to choose. I have to tell you, when I started my own journey of mindfulness, this was the practice, this was the brain fact that I noticed first. And I was like, this is why we have to be real and honest, because I'm like, what? I'm a really positive person, and yet I notice myself gravitating to that. You're in a meeting and somebody says a comment, grumbling about something, and you all start to kind of get on board and sucked in, and right? And so anyway, emotional tag. Brain fact number 3. My brain and I love storytelling. So creating a story saves energy. So I think I mentioned that our brain's this energy consumer, huge energy consumer of our mental energy. And so what our brain is doing is it can't analyze every little bit of information. So what it does is it kind of looks at all these stimuli and it just creates a story for us, which is incredible, right? Except we believe our brain stories even though it's not a reliable narrator. So our brain oftentimes gets the story wrong, and unfortunately, we believe it. So we want to start catching ourselves. We want to start catching those stories that we're telling ourselves, and then deciding if it's true, and perhaps creating some space so that we can gather facts. Let me give you an example. Let's just say your boss emails you and says, let's meet for lunch. And you're like, okay, yeah, I get to meet my boss for lunch. And then what starts to happen? We have all this other stuff that starts seeping in to that fact. Well, that's weird. Wonder why she wants to meet me for lunch. And oh my goodness, I think I heard that the company's not doing well. And oh my gosh, what if they have to lay people? What if she's going to lay me off? Oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my job. If I lose my job, how am I going to pay my house payment? Where will I live? Right? We spiral. We have a downward spiral. And so it's going to help us, especially in this day and age, to catch ourselves in those stories we're telling ourselves, okay? So I want to start and just spend a little time on attention. Attention is really incredibly important. It's all about what's happening inside of me, what's happening outside of me that's impacting me, okay? Our attention determines our life. Whatever we are paying attention to is where our life is going to be. It's why it's incredibly important for us to start noticing what we're paying attention to. It's also our brain's gatekeeper. So whatever we're allowing in is really where our attention is going to be. So I like to talk a little bit about spotlight theory of attention. So spotlight theory of attention is this understanding. Let's just assume that the room you're in and the room I'm in, we turn off all the lights, right? And in this room and in my life, There is beauty, and there's love, and there's success, and there's goodness, and there's hope. And in this room and in my life, there's also fear and worry and hardship and grief and failure and suffering, because no matter who we are, no matter what our job title is, we all have all of that going on in our life. Now, we never want to deny or suppress those harder things. That's like holding a beach ball underwater, right? You can do it. Remember when your kids did that? Push that ball underwater. And what happens, though, when you start wanting to have fun over here? The ball pops up, right? And so then you push it down. And that's exactly what happens when we try and deny or suppress those harder things in our life. So when we're being mindful, we want to allow those to be. They're part of our world, they're part of our story, they're part of our life. Whether we chose them or not, they're there. So we befriend them, we allow them to be. We don't try to control them. What we do have control over is what we pay attention to. Now, you may not know it, but you have a spotlight within you. And we're in control of our spotlight. If we're not careful and we're on autopilot, which is another brain fact I didn't get to share with you, our spotlight is naturally going to shine on the, you guessed it, negative. It's going to want to shine on the fear and the worry and that mistake I made and that hardship, right? And all the things that are not going right in my life, in this world. And if my spotlight is shining on that, then that's where my life is going to be, and it's going to take me in a downward spiral. I get to choose what I shine my light on. I get to choose to shift it. It doesn't mean I deny or suppress those harder things, but I choose to shine it on those things that I want to be paying attention to. So stable attention is the practice I want to share with you today. It's a micro practice. It's simple and it's small and it's meant to be embedded in your day. And it creates a stable foundation is exactly what it does. What it's going to help us do is stay focused despite distractions. And it's helping us cultivate a home base, which is going to help us self-soothe and still ourselves, okay? When basically our stable attention is our anchor, right? It's a place to go, to just be, to fill up, to regroup, to just get into the present moment. And we can do this in any micro moment throughout our day. So I want to lead you through this simple practice called just this. We're going to breathe, focus, and it's going to be our place to return and rest. So we begin in a simple meditation by getting comfortable. Perhaps you're sitting in your chair and sitting in a way that you can get good airflow into your lungs. And if you feel comfortable, it helps if we can close our eyes, but certainly lowering our gaze is equally helpful. So doing either one of those, and we're just going to begin by noticing our breath. Noticing that life-giving air as we breathe in and breathe out. Helping our mind to calm. Helping ourselves be in this moment, right now. Perhaps you notice the heaviness of your feet on the floor, or some tension in your shoulders. Breathing to relax. Noticing our breath getting a little slower and a little deeper with each breath cycle. Now this time when you breathe in, I'd like you to picture in your mind the word just, J-U-S-T. And when you breathe out, I'd like you to picture the word this, T-H-I-S. Breathing in just, breathing out this. Just this. If you have trouble seeing the word, that's okay. Just try again on the next breath cycle. Breathing in just. Breathing out this. We'll bring our attention back to our breath, back to that life-giving air. As we breathe in and breathe out, feeling grateful for this moment, savoring the sense of peace we've cultivated within. You may slowly open your eyes when you feel comfortable. I hope that went well. If you had trouble, that's okay. Sometimes we all, depending on where we are, may have difficulty. I'm going to share a couple things about that practice with you. What we're doing is we certainly can just notice our breath when we're trying to calm. But if we can kind of nudge our brain to focus on something, it's going to help us build that muscle of concentration and focus, which means that we're going to be able to eventually stay in our meditation longer. But that ripples out to then staying engaged with people longer, means being able to stay focused on a work project longer. So while it starts out very simple, it has this beautiful ripple effect into many aspects of our lives. This is a practice that I do on a daily basis. Anytime I'm noticing, I'm feeling anything at all, it immediately brings me back. It's our home base, it's our anchor. Again, we can do this for 30 seconds. We can do this for 60 seconds, 2 minutes. This practice also is very near and dear to my heart. I'd been practicing this when I started my own journey of mindfulness, and I'd been trying to get to my 10 minutes a day, and I had been working on this. It'd been about 2 weeks when I had some abdominal discomfort that had come and gone and come. And so I decided that day that I probably should see the doctor. So it was November 16th, 2012. And I went to see my doctor, and she decided that I needed to get a sonogram on my abdomen and get some blood work. I'm super healthy, and I'm not a worrier, so it was really no big deal. I went to diagnostic imaging, and I was laying on the bed, and the technician was doing her thing on my abdomen, and she said, "Robin, have you been in an accident lately?" And I said, "No, I don't think I've ever really been in an car accident." And a few minutes later, she paused, she put her instrument down, and she got up and she said, I'll be right back. I need to go talk to the doctor. And she left the room. Well, you can imagine what I did. I wanted to freak out, right? That's our initial instinct. I wanted to go in the past. Oh my gosh, what are some red flags that could tell me what this is? I immediately wanted to go to the future and create a story that was putting me on my deathbed and then at my funeral in 60 seconds flat, right? And I remembered my just this practice. I laid there and I decided that going in these places was only going to add to my suffering, that the present moment, all was well. I didn't know anything. I didn't need to predict anything. And it was my place of refuge. And I was so grateful that I'd started this practice because it was so helpful. She came in that morning and said that the doctor wanted a CAT scan. I did a lot of just this breathing that day. I got home, it was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a Friday, and my doctor called. My husband had just gotten home. And we put her on speakerphone, and she said, "Robin, I don't have good news for you. Your CA-125, which is a cancer marker for ovarian cancer, as well as the radiologist diagnostic imaging, we're diagnosing you with ovarian cancer." And it's a moment which some of you may have experienced, a 30-second conversation that turns your whole world upside down. Upside down. And you never think it's going to happen to you. And yet it can, and it does. That evening, I taught my husband just this. I said, I need you to stay with me in the present moment, because this is our place of refuge, and this is our place of hope and calm, and we don't need to go anywhere but this moment. It was my saving grace, along with some other things. So a week after my diagnosis, I went to my gynecological oncologist, and she said, Robin, I just want you to know that your CA-125, anything over 150, we diagnose as ovarian cancer, and yours is 12,000. I repeat, 12,000. Yeah. I think it was her way of telling me that this wasn't good, right? But the beautiful thing about the present moment is that I didn't latch on to that. Once it was gone, it was in the past. If I could just stay in the present moment, it was all good. And that's what I strive to do. For the 3 weeks between diagnosis and surgery, I spent a lot of time in just this. I spent a lot of time in prayer, which is a form of meditation. I spent a lot of time being grateful for doctors and appointments and family and friends. I got on prayer chains across the country. Thousands of people were praying for me, and I felt them. They were carrying a load for me that I didn't even realize necessarily at the time. I filled up with inspiration. For me, that's music. December 5th, I had surgery. My doctor removed 2 baseball-sized tumors. She checked all the fluid in my abdomen. She looked at all my organs, searching for cancer, and she found none. As she shared with my family, with tears in her eyes, she said she had no explanation for that. My family and I know. I have no doubt that I've been left here to share the message of mindfulness with you, with the world, because we are so distracted, we're so busy that we don't even realize the beauty and the joy that's found in the present moment. And it's here. All we're guaranteed is this moment. So every day, I start out in gratitude for today. That's all I have, and I'm grateful. And it's a beautiful way to live, and I hope that perhaps that's something that inspires you to begin really getting to that present moment so that you can reap the benefits and just finding joy in the present moment. My hope for you in watching this session is to understand that living mindfully is a process. It is not a quick fix, but the payoff is so worth it. Begin by noticing one thing about how your brain works. Maybe you notice other things that we didn't even talk about. Start striving to become an expert in yourself. Make sure you're without judgment, but starting to notice patterns, thoughts, things. Know that there are no rules. Start slow, make it your own. I shared with you breathing in just and breathing out this. You can change the words. You can have an image. You can have other words, whatever works for you, whatever brings you ease. So we have to make it our own. Remember to retreat to your anchor of mindfulness for rest. So we catch ourselves when our shoulders are here, or we catch ourselves when we're all full of angst. And we can just retreat to that anchor. Calm, breathe, recharge. And if you don't remember anything I've shared with you today, remember to breathe. When we are stressed, we hold our breath and we breathe very shallow. And that's not serving us well at all. Even just remembering to pause and to do 3 deep cleansing breaths. Our breath is one of our most powerful resources. So if nothing else, just remember to breathe. It all starts with a decision. And I hope that I've inspired you to perhaps make a decision to continue on your journey of mindfulness or start a journey of mindfulness so that you can find joy in every moment. Thank you.